Oh, no.
No, you're good. You're good.
Now I have to say things differently. I am not a financial advisor. Please go talk to your professional accountant in order to, okay, we did that. All right, so you have to understand how taxes work. Because as your income grows, a higher percentage of that money goes to the government in taxes. Now, I'm all for paying taxes. We need to support our police. We need to support our roads. We need to support all that stuff. And yet, if you understand taxes, that's one of the reasons why people move from the left side to the right side. When you hear things like Elon Musk is a billionaire, 188 billion net worth, and he paid 0 taxes last year. It's easy for all of us to go, oh, the system's rigged. It is rigged, but not in the way that we think. Elon Musk understands taxes, and he understands how to avoid the number one expense we all have. We all think our number one expense is housing or whatever. Over the course of your life, as you build your income, what you're going to find is your number one expense is going to be taxes. So understanding how to defer those taxes or avoid those taxes altogether is hugely important. And you're in the one business where you have a path to wealth if you understand the IRS designation of real estate professional. My wife is a real estate professional. She's a licensed real estate agent. She does not have a W-2 job. She spends more than 750 hours a year in that profession. And so therefore, the great thing about her being a real estate professional is I can drag my W-2 income, my income from the left side of the cash flow quadrant, I can drag that over to the right side of the cash flow quadrant and get huge tax benefits because my spouse is a real estate professional. All of you have the same opportunity. Now, here's some advice. Don't go marry someone just because of the tax break. I've been married twice, and so I'm speaking from experience. So, but the point is, you're in a business. The IRS gives you a clear path to avoid taxes if you choose to. You just have to understand it. So we spend so much time. I'll give you one great example. And this is something that team leaders get mad at me. So don't get mad at me. Okay.
Okay.
I had one of my market centers many years ago. I had a great accountant who understood taxes, understood the real estate profession at a high level. And so one of the things I like to do for my ALC is I would bring in wealth advisors. I would bring in different people. And I brought in this accountant. Our cap at the time was $18,000 a year. And I had people leaving. There were some competitors emerging that were $400 a month and all the things that are everywhere. And so I had some people leaving because they would, quote unquote, save money. I brought in this accountant, and every person on my ALC saved more than $18,000 from that 30-minute session that year by changing how they looked at and filed their taxes. So they saved more in taxes than they paid in a cap that year. So understanding this is such a huge thing. So we'll keep going, but that's the number one rule is you got to understand taxes. And this is all going to be boring stuff. And you're going to say, this isn't as sexy as flipping Rolexes. Nope, it's not. But more people go broke flipping Rolexes than make money at it. You just have to understand that. But you might be the one. You might also be the one that wins the lottery. And there's a fundamental truth that we have to talk about as we go through this. And that is there is a risk reward meter in every investment idea that you do. Every way to make money, there's a risk reward. The challenge is we tend to trade our time. This is time. We tend to trade our time for money instead of letting our money work for money. And your money works 24 hours a day. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't go on leave. It just works for you. So most of us are trading time. I want you to get to the point you're trading money. Why? Because there's a different risk. It's called beta for you finance geeks like me out there. It's called the beta. So let me give you an example. How many of you would love to have flipped a Rolex? You bought it for 18 and you sold it for 35,000. Anybody in the room? Okay, this is an intelligence test because you just made $17,000. So how many of you would like to buy a Rolex for 18 and sell it for 35? Okay, still only a couple of us. Okay, perfect. This is going to be a tough crowd to get wealthy, but we'll still work on it. All right. Now, here's why I bring that up. I bought this Rolex, and if you know me, you know I'm really cheap, but I bought it for $18,000. I'd never paid more than $100 for a watch. I made my wife take the Apple Watch she bought me back to the store because no one needs a $300 watch. And this is very special meaning to me. I'd worked for somebody that was a really tough situation for 10 years. And this is a sea dweller. It's waterproof up to 4,000 feet because I need that. And so I went out and bought this watch because it reminds me every day I look at it, I can hold my breath through anything. And so it's become the most prized thing I own, and I'll prove it because I was sitting at the airport in Austin about 6 months ago, and I had this gentleman next to me said, "Oh my gosh, is that a sea dweller? Is it an 84C27?" And I have no idea. Yes, it's a sea dweller and blah blah blah. And he said, "Do you know what those are going for right now?" And I said, "I don't care." And he said, "What?" He said, I am a watch dealer, which is code for I watched a YouTube video and now I flip Rolexes. And I'd offer you $30,000 for that right now. 18,000, 30,000. And I said, "Oh my gosh, why? What are they going for?" And he said, "About 35,000." And I said, "Oh, okay. So I could go sell it for 35,000. He goes, "Well, you probably sell it for 30, but yeah, you can probably sell it for 35. And I said, "You know what? I don't want to. It means more to me than that. And I don't need to go flip my Rolex." Now, you might be screaming in your head, "What an idiot. This guy's teaching wealth building. He could have pocketed an easy 17,000 or 12,000." And he said, "No, because it just means something different to me." My point in that conversation is I have no idea what that gentleman makes or what his net worth is, but I promise it's not anywhere near where ours will be if we follow this model. So the challenge is this beta conversation, and that is to flip Rolexes to make a profit has a very high risk associated with it. You're going to pay 18,000 and hope some other person's going to pay more than that. And I'll reduce it to the ridiculous. How many of you would take your entire net worth, walk into Vegas and bet on red 14?
Nope.
Pretty good bet, but probably pretty dumb. You have a 1 in 35 chance of hitting it. So the beta for that risk, taking your entire net worth, would be off the charts high. We can all feel that, right? Now, I'm going to argue that paying cash for a well-purchased rental property has a beta of almost zero. There's almost, as long as you have insurance and you find a tenant at some point, and you can be a terrible property manager and still make money on that investment and have a beta of risk of almost zero. The challenge is when you borrow money to buy that house, the beta goes way up and we don't realize it. And you get suckered into things like, I can get a mortgage at 5%. I can invest that cash into the stock market, make 10%, and I'll make the spread. The spread game has caused more people to go broke than any other game on the planet because there's a different beta. Please study this. Don't take my word for it. But I promise you, all of the gurus Robert Kiyosaki is a great example. His whole thesis is you should use other people's money to get rich. And by the way, it's not a new concept. I know the 19-year-olds on TikTok talk about this like, "I've discovered the secret to wealth building. What you do is borrow money from this person, make more money from this person. You keep the difference. It's amazing. Airbnb, you don't even have to own the thing. I'll teach you how to use someone else's Airbnb, rent it for hire," because there's a bunch of idiots from California who will rent it. And then what'll happen is you make the spread, you make the difference. All those things have different beta in them. And in our business, we're on the front lines of the best investment vehicles on the planet called real estate. 66% of all millionaires built their net worth through real estate. And so we're on the front lines of the best, and only 9% of us own rental property. Another thing to think about. So then what happens is money also flows out of our life. And this is the biggest problem we have as Americans. We call this expense control. That's a fancy term for budget, which nobody likes. It feels restrictive. It feels like diet. Here's the thing. All of you have a budget, whether you realize it or not. You just may have a crummy budget that you don't pay attention to. And on that note, when people are polled on what your monthly expenses are, they're off, they're low by $1,024 a month on average. So if you think you're spending $5,000 a month to pay all your bills, you're actually paying $6,024 on average. Does that make sense to everybody? Because we don't like to track our expenses. We don't like to tell our money where to go before wondering where it went. How money flows through your life is everything. It determines the bottom circle, which is your wealth strategy. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. 33% of all millionaires never made more than $100,000 in their lives.
Wow. No way.
So when people say, and I'm gonna show you why, but when people say you have to make a lot of money to build wealth, it's not true. How you treat your money. Let me give you an example, because again, you can't escape math. This is my conversation I have with my friends in California. just because you're in California doesn't mean you get to escape math, right? So when you think about how people build wealth, most people, 9 out of 10 millionaires did it over a long period of time by living on less than they made. I know, shocking, amazing, unbelievable. What a great tip, right? But if you can do this by going to any investment calculator, we do this in 8 weeks to wealth, which ironically kicks off today. It's a MAPS group coaching program. And you've got 3 fairly wealthy individuals teaching wealth building over 8 weeks. But here's what happens is we show a graph that shows if you want to be a millionaire by age 67, it's like $79 a month to invest if you're 20 years old. Then it jumps up to $208 a month if you're 30 years old, all the way up to you got to have like $8,300 a month if you're 60 years old to become a millionaire by age 67. So the longer you wait and put off this conversation, the harder it does become. But everyone in this room can be wealthy. You just have to choose how you run your system. And this is the third golden rule. You have to have a system. You have one, it just may be a crummy system, but you have to pay attention to this. In my mind, the reason we all work is to build wealth for our families. It's to make a living so that we can feed our families. It's why we work. So this idea that I sell real estate because I believe in the American dream and I just want to help my clients and that sort of thing, I do too, and I agree with that. And I charge a commission because I want to make money doing this. And so do all of you. So this becomes one of the most important parts of your life that we don't pay attention to. This is not more important than God, family, than business. This is not more important than any of those things. It's not all about money. It's about understanding money. One stat for you is wealthy people spend 8 hours a month studying their wealth. Broke people spend 0 hours a month. Now, if I asked you, where do you wait? And this is the problem with these new stupid gadgets is there's a game. It's like a Candy Crush game that my 18-year-old got me hooked on. And so if I'm on a plane or in the restroom or whatever, I know too much information. I might play that game. Last week I spent 2 hours playing that game. Now I have limited time. I work about 100 hours a week by choice, but I spent 2 hours playing a stupid Candy Crush game on my phone last week. Ironically, that's the exact amount of time that if I weren't focusing on my wealth building, if I did, I'd become wealthy. 8 hours a month, 2 hours a week. So as you think about your wealth strategy, you got to have one. And here's why we know this. Number one occupation, the number one occupation that leads to more millionaires than any others. Anybody know what it is?
Real estate?
No, it's not real estate agent. I will change that. We will change that together. The number one is engineer. Number one occupation that leads to becoming a millionaire is an engineer. And I'll tell you, all of them did it the same way, but I'm going to show you why. Number two, any guesses?
Doctors.
Accountants.
They understand it. Yeah.
Number three, anybody number three?
Are we number 3?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Teachers.
Oh,
No. Teachers?
Teachers. Number four,
they're all smart. Nurses.
lawyers.
Lawyers.
Yeah.
I forget number 5. It wasn't that memorable. Number 6, it wasn't real estate. Number 6 is doctors.
Doctors, 6.
Now, mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Willie Nelson should not be your financial advisor. Here's why. Let them be doctors and lawyers and such. Doctors and lawyers, while they do lead to more millionaires than all the people below them, they also have the most debt. But I want you to just focus in on these top 3, because this is shocking to most people who see this for the first time, but it makes a lot of sense if I tie this together. Engineers. Now, let me back up.
IT engineer.
The question is why? And my answer to you is the people who are attracted to a job like being an engineer are the pre-programmed people to follow a system or a model. And so therefore, when they start earning money, and engineers make a decent living, you can Google what the average engineer makes. In today's world, it's probably $100,000 a year, but they're not the quarterback for the Chiefs, right? They're not making millions of dollars. So when you think about becoming a millionaire, it's the slow and steady. It's the tortoise and the hare. Tortoise always wins that race. It's all that stuff, but they're pre-programmed. If they make it through engineering school to become an engineer, they're likely people who are good at following systems or models. accountants. Their job depends on them following system and model that the IRS puts out. So I went to school to be an accountant until my accounting professor said, this is a horrible idea. You don't have any focus, and I think you have ADD. You shouldn't be an accountant. And I said, thank you so much. Best advice I ever got. I'm going to go be a realtor. But accountants follow systems and models. They have to keep their licenses. Teachers have a lesson plan. They follow a system and a model. Ironically, one of the things that most teachers complain about is the teachers union, because they pull 9% of their paycheck out, whether they want to or not. It's not an option. If you're a teacher, you have to fund this. And so teachers are actually tricked into becoming millionaires, because if you put 9% of your pay over the course of your career into some kind of forced investment, you will become a millionaire. Even though teachers don't make a lot of money, the average teacher in America makes like $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year, and yet they're the third highest occupation to lead to becoming a millionaire, ahead of doctors and lawyers.
Wow.
So when we talk about having a system and a model, we as realtors are nowhere near the top of this list, because if you think about it, who is predestined to be attracted to a eat what you kill, commission only, it's all up to me, database building profession? It's people who typically don't love systems and models. It's also, by the way, why Gary Keller's built the #1 real estate company on the planet, because he took systems and models and gave them to people who didn't naturally love them. And when they started to have success with them, they went, there's something here. And he wrote a book. He wrote a book. One of my favorite things to do is I'll meet somebody and say, what was your income last year from your business? And they'll say $250,000. And I'll say, oh, you're about a quarter of the way through the book. So some of you will get that later, but it's called the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So to make $1 million a year, you have to actually get all the way to the back of the. Still not funny? Here's the #1 rule of comedy is, if a joke falls flat, just repeat it. So when I talk to people making 250, just kidding. Questions, comments, concerns. I threw a lot at you, and I've got some more to talk to you about, but any questions at this point?
Love it. Oh, it's
love
good
it.
stuff. Yeah, is it making sense? Is it resonating?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Keep it going.
All right. So let's go back. In our business, I'm going to speak to you personally in our business. Increasing our income in our business is very easy compared to other trades. If you're an engineer, you can't just walk in and say, hey, this year I think I'd like a raise of double my salary. But in real estate, you can. And so #1 is you got to focus on your #1 wealth building tool, and that's your income. And here's the crazy thing. This is just crazy to me, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And this is not adjusted for the last couple of years. This is from a couple of years ago, so it might be a little off. But if you make $60,000 a year, beyond $60,000 a year, there's almost zero correlation to building wealth. Let me say that again. If you make $60,000 a year, that might be adjusted up to 75 today for inflation. But if you make, at the time the study was done, beyond $60,000 a year, there's almost zero correlation to building wealth. And all that means is no matter how big your income gets, you can spend it. I thought I wanted a plane. Doesn't matter what I make, it costs $1 million a year to keep that plane in the air. I'm not buying a plane. So no matter what you make, I promise you can spend it. Because suddenly that boat looks nicer than the boat you already have. Suddenly that Rolex looks nicer than the one you have. You can always spend no matter how much you make. By the way, this is why Mike Tyson can spend $500 million. Not paying attention to your money is another piece of that. But you've got to work on your income. Now there's a very slight, but it's a decimal point. It's a rounding error. Obviously, if you make $1 million a year, then you should have a better odds of being a millionaire than if you make 60,000. But ironically, almost never do. So the reason that I bring this up is that we think the only way we're never going to build wealth. 60% of Americans polled say that winning the lottery is their retirement plan. 60%. Now, again, I just talked to you about, if you make 60,000 a year and you put 15% of that into growth stock mutual fund that makes 10% over the course of your career, and you stay out of debt, then I promise you, you'll be a multi-millionaire. So it's about living on less than you make. So income almost does not correlate. Under 60,000, it correlates big time. If you don't make at least 60,000 a year, your chances of building wealth are almost zero. Now, does it mean you can't do it? No, there's those outliers. But again, I'm going to give you the good, bad, and the ugly on both sides. So if you're not making 60,000 a year, you got to get that up. And in our business, there's no reason not to. Last year, I made $104,000 on referrals from a database in a market I haven't lived in since 2010. So I still have people calling me saying, hey, we think we're going to sell our house. I'm like, great, let me hook you up with the best agent in Kansas City, where I'm from. And so I've done that. And I think 80,000 of that 104 came from one agent source in Kansas City. And so we all have the ability to increase our income. We just have to think about it differently. The second thing is pull out your phones real quick and go to your contacts. If you have an iPhone, you can just go to list. It'll show you the total number. If you have an Android, you need to get with the 90s and get an iPhone. Just kidding, it's a joke. And Android's actually better at this. So if you have an Android, just click on your contacts. It'll show you how many contacts you have. But give me some ideas in the room. Who has the most contacts in your phone right now?
1643.
1,623?
43. 1643.
Got it. Someone in the room has 5,000 contacts in their phone.
I have 2,051.
Okay, cool. Here's the crazy thing. Now that we've reached a tipping point with command, if you have 201 plus people in command, many of you have seen this, the average GCI, this is not an earnings claim, this is not a TCPA issue, that has nothing to do with this. But if you have 201 or more contacts in command, your average income is 119,000 in GCI.
Write that down.
201 plus. So everyone in the room, I'm going to bet, I haven't found one human yet who has less than 201. Please don't be the room that has it. Contacts in their phone. In 7 minutes, you can plug in an API to command and download all your contacts into command. You can put them on a smart plan. Even if you're a staff member, I'm having this conversation with several of my staff members that to get their license, go through K-Score, get your license for free, put it in referral, then let's build a database for you. And then all you do is let everybody know you're in real estate. And if anybody needs anything, they can trust you, call you, and you'll help them, right? 1 out of 14 people in your contacts. So let's just do the math real quick. I'm going to use the number 2,000 because somebody mentioned that number. 2,000 divided by 14 is 142 people. What was your name that had 2,000 contacts?
Stacy. I'm sorry, Stacy.
Stacy, EY?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Stacy, I only know that because I work with 7 of them and it's most common spelling. Stacy, EY, has 142 people in her phone right now that are buying and selling a house this year. Now, that's times 2 transactions, 284. What's your average commission
Yeah, 6,000.
in your market? 6,000? So if you had 100% conversion of everybody who's going to move in your phone, which you don't, nobody does, and that's okay. But just for shock value, 284 times 6,000, you start every year with $1.7 million in commissions. And then if we don't contact, communicate them, have in a database, have a smart plan, then that erodes down to whatever we actually do sell. And for most agents, that's going to be 4 or 5 houses out of that group of people. So out of 284 houses that are going to sell to people who are already in your phone, we typically get 4 to 5 of those.
Is this sinking in? Yeah.
It's super depressing. Now, that's why we built Command the way that we did. And this is the thing that people don't understand. And by the way, most people who say Command sucks haven't logged into it in years. But here's the point. If I can help you get those 2,000 people into Command, not 2 million, 2,000 people into Command, put them on a smart plan, then what are the chances that we at least double that number and get to 10 transactions? Highly likely, right? So when we think about this business is still super basic and it's not sexy and people don't love hearing this. It's still about building a database, feeding it every day, communicating with it in a systematic way and service all the leads come your way so that you get referrals, so that you build your database, so that you keep feeding it every day, so that you keep communicating with it, so you service more of the leads, so that this is how a business is built. Now I understand we live in a time, and I had someone in my office, been in the business 5 years. Their business went 40 deals, 100 deals, 180 deals, 280 deals, 500 deals. all online lead generation type stuff. In this environment today, you can build a business like this. Ask me what their profitability was.
What was it?
500 transactions, they made 200 grand.
What's one?
To put that into perspective, I made 104 by making 6 phone calls and not selling 500 houses. If that makes sense. So could it be that it's this simple? The answer is yes. So now we get our income up. Once you've done that, the next thing you've got to do is maximize tax savings. And I could get you into all the boring things in the Augusta rule and section 199A and how to become a real estate professional. And you can go down a rabbit hole that'll last for decades like it has with me. But I promise you, there's not a person in the room that we couldn't wipe every dollar of your taxes away with the right strategy. Doesn't mean you're a bad person and you're not paying taxes. What it means is, and actually the government wants you to do this. This is often misunderstood. The government wants you to buy commercial properties and cost segregate them and accelerate the depreciation on them, et cetera, because the government wants you to build wealth, because as you build wealth, they make more money. A lot of people think the man's here to keep us down. The government benefits if you all get wealthy. So they want you to maximize your taxes at the lower level. Hopefully all of you earn less money today than you ever will for the rest of your lives. But unfortunately, we've been taught in our society, this is what your life looks like. Tell me if I'm lying. So you're in your 20s, you get out of school, you're broke, your income's low, but also your debt's low. In your 30s, you start making some money, you might get a real job, you might, whatever, you get in your 40s, and now you're getting towards the pinnacle of your career. You earn more money in your 50s than any other decade in your life. And then suddenly we're taught that we should be prepared for our income to go down, our wealth to go down, and then we should downsize houses and live in a old folks home and eat Alpo. That's what we're taught as society. But our income, the reason we're taught that is because this is how it actually works. Your income does this throughout the decades of your life. Here's the crazy thing. Your debt load does this throughout the course of your life. So what we tend to do if we don't understand debt, see, here's the fundamental principle number 3 is you have to get on the right side of money. And the right side of money means there's almost always interest paid on loans. In fact, the IRS will not count a loan as a legitimate document, or a loan document as legitimate if there's no interest rate attached to it. So you are either paying interest or you are receiving interest on your money. The problem with our society is we tend to try and do both at the same time, and it's a fool's errand. That's why I don't borrow money. I don't want to pay $1 of interest to anybody, because that's $1 less that I have to go invest. Okay. So you have to, by maximizing your taxes, you're putting more of your dollars into your investments so that your dollars are working harder for you than your time is. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
All right. So let me go back. Any questions on this?
It's
No?
so good. It's really good. And by the way, I know that Jason and Mark are both doing in the wealth building class. You guys really dive into the taxes side of things, right?
Super exciting. Taxes.
Yay.
But what if I told you, seriously, almost $750,000 is what I'm saving on taxes this year.
Sounds like something we need to dig into.
It is. And I will tell you, as much as I know about this, and as much as I, and I could give you 100 different ideas like this, but the board of directors idea, I have a tax strategist who is different than my accountant. And I fired almost every, I have fired every accountant I've ever had, except the latest one, because accountants and tax strategists are different people. Accountants literally are following rules and they're checking boxes to make sure the IRS doesn't get you in trouble. But a tax strategist is saying, hey, I know you very well, and I know your businesses very, very well. This would be a great year based on what's happening in the tax code right now. You can accelerate 80% of the building that you just bought, accelerate the depreciation instead of waiting 37.5 years. Why don't we pull all that income back? Oh, by the way, that's a $2 million building times 80%, 1.6 of your earnings you don't have to pay taxes on. Hence, $750,000 savings like that. Now you have to understand, if I sell that building next year, I have to pay that back unless I 1031 exchange it. Like this is the kind of stuff that no one wants to learn about, that I don't want to learn about. But by learning about it, you supercharge your wealth building. And I'm out of time. I apologize. I have to go, but I love all of you. I'm sorry we couldn't get into more questions. Can we do this again?
Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
Awesome. Hook us up.
All right, Mark, thank you so much for your time.
See you. Bye.
So good.
I have like 10 major takeaways. What were y'all? What's the biggest thing you guys got from that?
Get all the wallers.
Yeah.
Get all your millionaires.
Okay, so the other side of this, yeah, and the other side of this, what we haven't been able to touch on, which yesterday Jason Abrams got on our leadership call, and when he was talking about his taxes, he broke down the Augusta rule and all these things that he just rattled off. He broke down what that means. And I was like, oh my God, why am I not doing this? And it comes down to your accountant usually is not just gonna offer this to you. You need to ask them the question, and you don't need to know about it. You need to say, well, does the Augusta rule apply to me? And they know what that means, and they know how to apply that to your taxes. So Jason Abrams is actually doing a lecture right now. It's gonna be recorded, and I'm gonna play it for all of you. And that is the one thing, like, if you get nothing else out of this year, if you can figure out those loopholes in your taxes, I mean, how much you guys paying in taxes? Figure. Like thousands and thousands of dollars, and they are going to teach you a government approved way to get around that. And it all comes down to educating ourselves.
I think a lot of times they all reference the book Tax Free World.
Yeah.
That is like the one book you should read as a.
Yeah. Yeah.
We invite our accountants to watch it.
We should definitely like our accountants watch it.
Just in case any of y'all wanted to have behind what he just said.
Yeah.
That means he paid $46 million.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Which he will never say because he doesn't talk about his own money
He,
like that.
he
so.
told us without.
Without,
directly telling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What were,
Equation.
yeah, what were other takeaways?
But you don't have to sell 10,000 houses a year to be a millionaire
Yeah.
or be number one. Like, it's consistent and smart with your money.
I don't know about you guys, but when we started talking about, interest and paying $1 extra, I was like, oh, I feel so convicted because how easy is it just to swipe your credit card and be like, oh, it's just this, it's just a little amount, but those little amounts add up to big amounts. Can we change our mindset to only spending what we have in our accounts and investing our money wisely? Like, it all starts with education. And I mean, I don't know about you, but it is a horrible feeling to wake up every morning knowing you've got debt that you need to pay off and you're not sure how to do it.
I think when it comes to Keller Williams teaching you about your calendar and how to stick to it, it's like it's almost like grooming you for the bigger lesson. Like, I feel like just after this, watching this, it's like you first get into entrepreneurship. For me, I first got into entrepreneurship because I didn't want nobody telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, just because I wanted a bigger life, but now it's like, okay, I have to dive into educating myself if I really want to achieve the goal that I want.
The last thing I'll say, because I know, thank you guys so much for sticking around. I know we're here a lot longer than we planned. It is so easy. The 201 contacts in command. I mean, let command do the work for you. If you put all of your contacts that are in your phone into command and hook them up with a smart plan, which we can show you how to do that. Set up meetings with us, set up meetings with Shelby, set up meetings with Sydney Seymour, our tech trainer. If you do that, I mean, by default, you're going to start seeing business come in. Why would you not? Put it in there, plug it in, let command do the work for you. I mean, you saw the numbers up there. So why would we not? You know, let's utilize what we have. So any other?
The only other thing I would add is it's not that far out, but I don't know if you mentioned it, but in 2007, he tells the story that he was basically bankrupt. That is not very long ago.
Yeah.
You know, and so don't think it's unattainable.
That's right.
I also like think we live in an area where like so many people are constantly like investing with hard money loans.
Yeah.
And I've worked with personally with so many investors who are stressed to the max, like one bad deal
Yeah.
can like bankrupt them, divorces.
Yeah.
And he's literally super wealthy and saying, don't borrow other people's money. And you know, because I think society wants us to borrow, you're cool if you borrow, right?
Can you guys head up? I want to take a picture. Everyone was here and I want to put it in a group and I want our to share it with the market center. I'm so appreciative that you guys came today. This was really awesome. I feel super energized. All right, maybe like right here. Ooh, I'm still on.
Yes, we're still on.
Come on. Going so. Thank you.
There we go.
You might need to get some right on.
Meredith needs to be paying for it.
Do we have to know?
Contact number. People who are like friendly.
That's.
Good. All right, 3, 2, 1. Jeez. All right, one more. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Gotta be. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna send it to you because it's not as hard as we think. It looks like. We'll all do it together. I did something. I hope so.